to what he went through. But so by the progression, it would be Anthony's turn again as the prosecutor. But I was hoping maybe to get some involvement from some folks that weren't necessarily involved in the, I guess, the criminal justice system, the courts, prosecutors. So by the progression, it would be Anthony's turn again. Well, I mean, if as the prosecutor, but I was hoping maybe to get some involvement from some folks that weren't necessarily involved in the, I guess, the criminal justice system, the courts. So by the progression. Megan, I'm getting a lot of that kind of came back on me, didn't it? I don't know how much of that you heard, and then all of a sudden it's like it was just repeating what I had said. So
that's what I was hearing as well. You repeating yourself.
Was that because of the recording, Megan? Did you just start recording on YouTube, or was it how much of that you heard, and then all of a sudden it's like it was just what I had said? I'll tell you what.
How about that?
If everyone could mute other than the speaker, that would help.
Is that better? Can you guys hear it now? It might be because of the recording.
Okay. Well, we'll keep trying. If it may be me too. I lost my computer at my desk here today to someone who had to quarantine, so I sent my laptop, my computer home. So with a employee. So I don't know that if everybody heard me. That was kind of my hope, is we'd have some people that maybe not every day, day in, day out in the criminal justice system. I don't know if Anthony wants to be involved. I'll do it again. It makes me no difference. I just thought it'd be time. It's probably time to get some fresh folks involved. But
what's the job of vice president? I don't write well. That's why I really don't want to be a secretary.
Well, the vice, really, I guess Chad, you could probably only in occasions when the chair couldn't be present to conduct a meeting.
I honestly would feel more comfortable doing that than writing down everything that has been said. Unless it's recorded, and then I would go back and rewrite it. I needed to be honest. I don't feel comfortable writing the minutes.
Okay.
Nathan, it's Anthony. I'm on here. I certainly do not care to do it. I understand what you're saying about getting some different perspectives. Obviously, we're involved in it day to day as far as the legal system. So, if I don't care to take it over if nobody else wants to do it, but certainly if Johnny does, or if somebody else wants to nominate someone else, then that's fine as well. So whatever the board thinks is appropriate.
Yeah.
I just feel like there's so many times, there's so many legal things that I personally don't, I even have to ask questions about. So I would feel better if somebody in the legal would be their president or vice president, myself personally.
I just tried calling Johnny and it went straight to his voicemail, so he's not available, I guess.
All right.
Johnny emailed me earlier today, and he said that he had another meeting that he had to be at during the same time. But he said that he wasn't sure if he had time to commit to being the president of the board. He wants to be able to give the board everything that he can, but wasn't sure if he was the best pick either. But he did not say that he declined the nomination.
Well, Anthony, are you willing to, I guess if we don't have anybody else, are you willing to, or wanting to do it? I know you're just coming off a year at IPAC as president, so.
Yeah, I still have that responsibility until June. I usually have to go up once a month for that, usually on a Thursday and sometimes on a Friday once a month for that. That'll end in June. So, like I said, I certainly don't mind it if that's what the board feels is appropriate. Otherwise, I'll be certainly glad to let someone else do it as well.
Okay. Chad, do you have any thoughts? You've been, I think as long as I've been the vice.
No, I definitely can appreciate what you're saying and what you're looking at. I think it would be appropriate if Prosecutor Quinn would like, if he's willing to serve as president for a year, and then we can put Annie or Bridget or someone else into the role as vice president and let them kind of watch how Anthony works over the next year, and maybe we can have a member of the general public take over a year from now.
And
Or on that hand, I'm happy to serve again too if need be.
Okay. And then secretary,
Secretary, Doug Tarvin was nominated, and he's our current secretary. And then, of course, Annie, who said that she would prefer to decline.
okay. Is Doug on?
I don't see him unless he's one of the phone numbers in here.
Well, here's, I would I think I would at this point nominate, or I would look for nominations for Anthony as president, Annie as vice president, and Mr. Tarvin as secretary.
I approve that slate and move that that is the slate that we nominate, being Anthony, Annie, and Mr. Tarvin.
All right. There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second, Bill.
All right. Any other discussion? All right, so I guess then with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed to that slate of officers? All right, that's it. Anthony, I appreciate it. Annie, thank you. So it'll be Anthony, Annie, and Doug will be the slate going forward. And then hopefully, Annie, you'll find that you'll probably just be bored and be looking for more things to do. So you'll be ready to step in next year, right?
I'll come and listen very reverently. And try to learn everything.
All right. All right. So is there any other discussion on the election of officers?
I would just ask, for the record, who said that they seconded the motion? I missed that one.
It was Bill Hoaxang.
Thank you. And then Chad, you made the motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. With that then, Megan, the floor is yours.
Okay. So I sent you all our December financial report that we submitted to the Indiana Department of Correction. It showed us, and before I go too much further, I would like to introduce our program director, Bruce Henry. He's on our meeting right now, and that's one of the benefits of meeting virtually. People from Indianapolis can pop in down here for our Southern meetings every once in a while. So Bruce, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the invite.
Thanks. But for our financial report, we did expend 100% of the Indiana Department of Correction grant funding. We expended 96% of what we had budgeted for project income. Given what we saw with our collections for 2020 and the impact that COVID had on our collections, particularly, there were 3 months that were uh, quite lower than we typically would see. I did kind of keep a much closer eye. We tightened spending on our project income expenditures. And I actually feel like we did a really good job, like with our expenditures being in alignment with what we had collected for the most part for 2020. So of our project income collected, we expended 92% of that. Or in other words, of our project income expenditures, 92% of that was recuperated in project income collections this year. So I don't believe that we took quite as hard of a hit as what I was originally expecting when it comes to program fees collected for project income. And as I said, we did tighten our spending in project income as well. One of the things that I did want to talk to the advisory board about, though, is the fact that at the end of December, we had a couple of our work release participants who tested positive for COVID. Kind of similar circumstance to what it was back in June when this happened. And so in order to keep our participants safe and our staff, we decided it would be best at that time to bring our population down in our work release facility. And some of our participants did have to go on quarantine for a period of time where they were unable to work. And so one of the things that I wanted to bring up to the advisory board was whether or not you all would consider waiving those programmatic fees for those individuals while they were unable to work. They were essentially on lockdown in their homes, but they were still being charged to be on our community corrections work release and home detention programs. And, you know, it's one of those things that COVID has made me consider the financial impact that some of our decisions are having on our participants. And so it's just something that I wanted to bring up and see what your thoughts were, and if you all would consider temporarily suspending the program fees for our participants just for that 10-day period whenever they were on quarantine and unable to work.
How much would it be per day?
I'm sorry, Annie, I can't hardly hear you.
How much, I know, I don't know if my computer works. How much money are we talking?
Yeah, so we had about 57 work release participants, 57, 58. I get that number mixed up. But so it would be 10 days for, we'll say 58 participants. Our daily rate is $14.29 times 58. So $8,288.20 total.
Megan, do you know, were any of them able to work from home or receive any benefits like paid time off or anything in that regard?
Some of them were trying to work with their employers on trying to get like quarantine time essentially, but since it was after the first of the year when most of the time that they were quarantined, a lot of employers kind of stopped the quarantine payments or whatever you would want to call them.
And Megan, were there some also that, I believe I heard this about the female work release? So they were quarantined, they got out to go to work one day, and then the next day somebody tested positive, and then those 3 or 4 had to re-quarantine, even though they weren't positive. Is that accurate?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, so they lost income that whole time they were off.
Yeah. So there were 3 girls who were actually in quarantine closer to about 20 days, 21.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we were the ones, I guess my mind wrapping around this a little bit is we were the ones that made them stay at our facility because they had to quarantine because they were a contact of somebody else who was positive at our facility. Is that accurate or not?
Right. Yeah. That was a decision that we made in partnership with the Dubois County Health Department and the Indiana State Department of Health. That because all of our participants are kind of just because of the nature of our facility being a congregate living facility, that all of our participants were considered close contacts and needed to quarantine to slow the spread.
I guess I would be in support of waiving their fees then. That would be my opinion or my position about it.
I agree with that.
Is that a motion and a second?
How do we afford it? Because finances are always, I mean, I guess on the surface I would support it, but how do we pay for it? Because that's a $9,000 hit or $8,000.
Megan, did you say 8,000 or was it 828?
$8,288.20 for
Okay.
58 participants. Yeah. I think that I'm really happy with where our collections had been in 2018 and 2019. I think that we've been very conservative in our project income spending. I think that we have a healthy balance in our project income as well as in the CD that we have for our project income. CTP has a healthy balance as well. I think that this decision, for the benefit of our participants and their families, we can afford it.
I'll make a motion to waive 10 days of the participant fees as mentioned by the director.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
All right. All right. So we got a motion, Jennifer Lampert, second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
I guess, did anybody else have any questions on the collections and expenditures report? Okay. I think the next item then is our performance metrics. And I have our continuous quality improvement specialist, Dana Wood, on here to talk to us about the work that we've done here.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So I am jumping in here today. So we're going to talk about our performance metrics for last year. So we just finished up at the end of December, and we are currently in the process of setting some new goals for 2021. I'm very excited about this round. So this was the second, I believe, full round of performance metrics that I've had the privilege to be a part of. And we have set some really high goals and learned a lot of really great things, and really found a lot of opportunity moving forward. So I know Megan went ahead and sent these out to you, sent these out to you earlier. And so you probably had a chance to look them over and maybe kind of think about some questions you might have. All of that considered, I'm just going to briefly touch on each of the 5. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. So our first goal was for 90% of our staff members to receive 40 or more training hours per year. And in the previous years, this has always been a goal that we've struggled with because 40 hours is a lot of training. I think it's easy, as Meg and I were discussing earlier this week, to just kind of dismiss a lot of these goals for 2020 and say, because COVID, but we don't get that luxury. We adapt to whatever the situation presents because our people still need the support and accountability that we could provide. So we were able to hit a level that was really exciting to me because we adapted to the fact that training moved online. There a lot of in-person opportunities were no longer there. And so for this past year, we hit an 82% of our staff members receiving those 40 hours. So we didn't exactly hit that goal, but we got really close. Additionally, if you look at it on an individual basis, 18 of our staff members reached that level. And then we had just 4 who were below that level for the year. Also, kind of zooming out in a larger view, if we look at the year previous, when we had this as a goal, we were shooting for an 80%. And last year we were at 62%. So we are making a lot of good ground there. We have also hit the ground running in 2021. So actually just this morning, I sat with all of our admin staff and did our first round of learning teams. We're working on motivational interviewing and just doing a lot of really great work. And I feel like we really have solidified some plans moving forward, kind of to focus on our training hours and how to get those in. And not only that, it's not just checking the box, it's making sure that those are hours that are being used in such a way that we're all growing as a team. So I'm very excited about that one. So before I move on, does anyone have any questions about the training hours? Okay. So goal number 2 was talking about our case plans. Our goal was 85% of all of our case plans will be complete within 5 business days. This is a tough one. We struggled with this one, especially in the kind of year that we had. We also had a couple other shakeups as well. In June, we lost some of our grant funding for a full-time case management position. That individual was the one who was doing the intake process. So setting up the case and doing a lot of the kind of background work that you have to do, doing the orientations. And so whenever that happened, we had to switch from that individual taking on that role to our case managers taking on that role as well. So we kind of added another layer of work. And then they also now everyone is assigned a day in which they are the person who's conducting the orientation and entering the information. So it makes it a little bit more difficult whenever we take that into account. So we hit a 45%. And if I said that I was thrilled with that number, I'd be lying. But I also realized that we were asking our team to do a lot in this kind of year and also losing that person and then asking them to take on more responsibilities. Also, considering we set that in the 5 business days, we realized how important it is to get those into place right away. That's our blueprint. That's our bread and butter for the work that we do. But we also realize that there's a lot of barriers. For instance, people who come in and already have employment somewhere, and now we're having to work around their schedule maybe with employment, and then a case manager schedule who may already have meetings scheduled during the time that person's at work. So it's been a very good learning experience for all of us. And I think we are actually going to be changing just a little bit the time frame in which we want those case plans done, not because they're not important and they shouldn't be done timely, but we also have to take into account the fact that sometimes that time scale just, it's not going to work because of the barriers that are set up. So if there's maybe some overall program changes, it would be easier to accomplish. But again, like, we are doing a really great job. And even though we didn't hit that 5 business days, 99% of them were all done within a 2-week time period. So we're talking an extra 5 days. So I'm very happy with that so far. Lots of good learning. Any questions? If not, we'll move on to our goal 3. So we're looking at exit assessments. So our goal was 80% of all moderate to very high risk individuals who have been on our programs for at least 120 days will receive an exit assessment. I was very excited about this because this was one of our goals last year, and we kind of flopped. We hit a 30%. And I really was determined that we were going to get there this year. And I realized that one of the parts that I could play was being proactive instead of reactive. So instead of saying, hey, you didn't do this exit assessment, I then started providing the case manager's list of, hey, this is upcoming. Make sure you get this done before this person leaves. It's a whole different kind of mindset change. So all things considered, we ended up at a 65%. We didn't hit that 80, but if we look at the goal that we had the year previous, which was 60%, we hit that goal. So we're making a lot of great progress, and that is definitely something that's going to be on our radar for next year. So that's going to be another thing that we are targeting moving forward. Any questions about exit assessments?
Dana, I couldn't get my computer to work. I had a question going back to goal 2.
Sure.
You kind of mentioned maybe revamping or modifying. Do you have an idea as far as how many days you see those assessments being done then going forward?
I would say 10 days is probably what we'll end up with. So like it would be the 10 working days or 2 weeks, essentially.
Is the case manager is going to be responsible for that, or is there going to be somebody that takes that roll up going forward as well?
For the intake, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
That might be a Megan question, just depending on staffing and whatnot going forward, especially since we have some grant stuff that kind of factors in there as well.
That's all I had.
Yeah, and I think whenever it comes to building a case plan, that's something that really it's beneficial to do with the person that you're going to be working with as your case manager, because it's what I would consider to be a collaboration plan or success plan. The participants are working on that treatment plan with the case manager after they've already built rapport, and our participants have started building trust in our case managers by that point. And so I think it's important that the person who is going to be providing case management services throughout the duration of their supervision is also the one helping to build that case plan, just because they're going to go back and revisit that case plan each time that they're meeting, because that, like Dana said, it is our bread and butter. It's what we do. If we're not working off of interventions from our case plan, we're really not doing risk reduction.
Any other questions? All right, I will jump to goal number 4, which I think is a really interesting one. So that was looking at achieving 80% of all of our moderate to high risk participants who were on our programs for 120 days or more, for them to receive at least 50 hours of dosage during the course of their supervision. So first of all, I guess I don't really have to say that what a terrible year to try and measure something like this. At the start of the pandemic, we had situations in which first of all, we had no classes. We had everything shut down. And then a lot of our outside providers were closed as well. So there was nothing being offered. We actually started tracking this in March. So this is literally right at the beginning. So kind of bad timing. However, we did learn a lot through the process because we really didn't even know. I remember when we were talking originally, when we were setting these last year, we didn't even know where we would maybe end up as far as dosage hours. We didn't really know, okay, how long is someone here and how long is it going to take them to reach their recommended dosage hours? So this was a good kind of starting out goal. And obviously we set the bar pretty high, 50 hours. We had a lot of people who finished at like 120, 121 days. And while that sounds like a lot of time, it is not, and it goes by so quickly, especially whenever you do not have the opportunities to get people in treatment and programming like you typically would. So those numbers that I gave you for the people who have completed are on the lower side. Those are the people who barely squeaked over 120 days and who they really did miss a lot of the opportunities that we might have been able to provide them. However, I don't think it negates the fact that that number is still low. I am very encouraged, however, by the ones that are still active and have already reached over that 120-day mark, because we're averaging in more of like the 20, 30-hour mark for most of them. And then our very high is a little bit lower, but it's difficult because those are the ones that are hard to get actively involved in treatment. They're the ones who are going to be a bit more resistant. So I am really excited about continuing to measure this. This is something we haven't closed up shop on. I have created kind of a little dosage tracker, and we put all of our information in there, and we're going to continue to monitor it moving forward. Maybe even someday, this is something that we take a look at as a system of how we want our system to run, perhaps looking at more through a treatment and dosage lens. So a lot of good stuff. We're probably going to have to kind of refigure how we want to set this goal because it's really hard to set it on the short term. And I realized that as we moved along. So we'll see how we set this up for next year, but very excited about putting that into place and monitoring it. Any questions?
Not to add more to your plate, Dana, but I would love to see this track then into probation. And I know we've talked about this, at least for the individuals that come from community corrections to probation. We have them continue with the programming that they've already been involved in. And we have a lot of times a little bit longer time to work with them. But it's just a matter of figuring out, I don't even know the number on how many of those people are that come to probation after community corrections. I'm sure that's something you could figure out and towards that.
Yeah, because then that's still going to kind of calculate towards that total dosage hours they need for intervention. I think that's definitely something that we can develop further. So I'll put that in the back of my brain.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, go ahead, Chad. I think I saw you on mute.
I don't know if this is for Megan or you, Dana. What is the basis of what we are considering to be the appropriate number of dosage for this amount of time? I know we had talked about it last year and the year before both, that I think different data, depending on whose data you use, there's different numbers that are considered what is valuable, what is a waste of time, and what is detrimental even. So I didn't know whose numbers we're using or what that background research we're doing.
Yeah, so we're basing ours off of the carry bits and guides. They're kind of set up in their hours for intervention and dosage. So for them, we did not take into account our low risk individuals because those are the ones who are typically going to self-correct. And they are the ones, if we put them in classes, but those who are moderate and high risk, they're going to teach them some less than stellar behaviors. So our low risk, we are actually still tracking that dosage just to see where it ends up, but we're not necessarily targeting anything that way. So our low risk individuals are not going to be in any sort of group programming. It's just basically whatever their needs are. They might do a like a carry bid or guide with their case manager, or if they have additional needs such as counseling, therapy, they will get a referral for that, but they won't be doing any of our in-house group treatment. For our moderate people, we were looking at doing 100 to 150 hours. Our high risk is going to be the 200 mark-ish, and then our very high is 300 hours. So I think we kind of discussed that one meeting you were just talking about, Chad, is like, what is the time frame in which to get these hours? If you have someone who is very high risk and they have 120 days, there's not enough time to get in 300 hours of dosage, right? So that's really what we're running into, is we can provide as much as we can, and we try to provide as much as we can in the short time frame that we have. But there are the constraints of, well, this person's only got 120 days here, and by the time they get in, get their case plan done, get their IRAS assessment, get their referrals sent off, start treatment, that 120 days flies by. So I think it really is a time issue. The time constraints are really what we push back up against a lot. So I don't know if that necessarily answers your question, but there's not necessarily like a time frame. We're kind of at the mercy of whatever they get sentenced to is what we've got to work with.
And what was your answer for moderate? I didn't catch that.
Is about 100 to 150 hours.
So the research shows, though, that if you do 50 hours with the people, is that better than no hours?
Yeah, so anytime we can engage anyone in any level of treatment, like some is better than nothing, right? We're hoping at least something takes. You plant a seed, and hopefully that maybe that one seed is going to take off. But we do the best with what the time we have. So even if we don't reach that 50 hours, it's still fruitful to have people in class. We talk about MRT is our main program. And once you hit, I think it's step 3, you are already reducing your risk to commit another offense. So they have some studies that kind of tie in with that through, I believe it's CCI. And so they talk about how if you need to get someone, if they're getting released, try and push them, to even step 3 and 6, because those are big steps and kind of help drive that behavior change. So yes, anything is better than nothing. Any other questions? All right. So this last goal I'm very excited about. It's easy to look at these and say, well, we missed 4 of our goals and we only got 1, right? We can easily look at this in a we passed or we failed kind of format. However, I am most excited the fact that we hit this goal and maybe missed the mark just a little bit on each of these other goals, because this is the single most reason our agency exists. So we were setting a goal to receive a risk reduction rate of 15% for our moderate up to our very high risk participants who are on our programs for 120 or more days in 2020. We ran this report, and at the end of the year, we ended up with a risk reduction rate of 18.57%. So what this is telling us is that the individuals who are coming into our programs are receiving the things that they need, that whenever they're leaving, their likelihood to come back and see us ever again is lessened. I always like to tell people who take classes with me that the only time I ever want to see you again is picking out tomatoes at Walmart in the grocery store. And I think that this goes to show that we're doing a great job of doing that. We have set some really great goals as an agency, as a larger system, that I feel like is going to keep pushing this number. And we are going to do really big things. That risk reduction shows that all of these previous goals that we've set, we're doing things and we're getting stuff done, and we are showing positive effect and change in our community. So I'm very, very excited about that last goal. That is something we are going to continue working on, and continuing just try and improve ourselves as a team, as an agency, and I am very excited for 2021. So any questions? If not, I'll turn it back over to Megan.
Can really, I mean, being completely transparent, I was a little bit bummed about not meeting some of these goals. But looking at the progress that we did make, it really was huge. And that last goal on risk reduction, I think, I said it in a couple of different ways in our annual report, what that actually means, because it is a big deal, is a very big deal. When you're reducing risk, that means you're reducing the likelihood that somebody's going to reoffend and commit future crime in our community. And they're going to be more successful employees, more successful spouses, parents. I mean, there's a huge ripple effect whenever you start talking about risk reduction. So I'm really proud of our team for that. Anything else that anybody would like to say about our performance metrics or questions before I go on to the annual report?
I would like to say your team is doing a great job. You know, these are things that we've wanted to work for many, many years. And it's so exciting to see those get put into the process now, even though maybe we didn't quite make all those goals, but there's forward progression and it's going to continue, and it's a good thing. The ball's going to keep rolling. So it's awesome. Good job.
Thank you.
I have another question. I think that I'll say I agree with Jenny. I think we made some good progress this year, considering the circumstances. My one question, though, we have the risk reduction numbers, but what about over the maybe since last year when we talked about this? Is there actually has the criminal justice system in any way come together on what how you measure actual recidivism? I know that we've had that conversation every year. Do we now? Because that's really what if we had a universal metric, the recidivism risk reduction is nice, but that's more. That's just a number. The actual number is probably what would be. How did it play out in the real world? I guess is what I. So if you can talk about anything on that topic, that would be helpful, please.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think Dana, so whenever we initially set our performance metrics, one of the metrics that I originally set was to reduce recidivism to this percent. But since these are measured on an annual basis, and we're supposed to be measuring like our current behaviors and how that's working to impact like outcomes in that given year, we were asked to change it away from recidivism reduction because that's measured over a 3-year period, and different agencies measure recidivism differently, as you mentioned. So community corrections has chosen to measure recidivism as any new criminal charge in the state of Indiana within a 3-year period. Some places just want to know if they return to the DOC. I don't think that's not that to me, whether or not somebody returns to the DOC, that's not good enough. of a metric for me. I want to know if they're returning to criminal behavior after they complete our program. So, so we do measure whether or not a participant gets additional charges within that 3-year period. I think Dana might have that recidivism rate, but that's based off of 2016 completions, I believe. Or am I right there, Dana?
Yeah, so that's going to be your 2016 to, or 2015, I think, to 2018 data. And then we're also working on the um, two 2 years after that. But truth be told, I think recidivism oftentimes it is a good number to have, but if I'm being frank, it's really hard to measure. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. And honestly, I don't see us having the structure as a system, the manpower, if you will, the hours to put to it that it would take if we're talking about a system wide. Because I feel like that would fall into my hands, and I would need some people to help with some data on that one, especially because when you're looking at historical data, unless there's been some sort of quality check on it, usually it's not super clean. We saw that when we switched systems here at Corrections to a web-based platform. So it's really, I think people really latch onto the term recidivism, and I believe it is incredibly important to know that number, but a lot of counties do not have the resources to put forth to make a big number like that across the system happen, if that makes sense.
No, I appreciate the feedback. I understand that a lot of people are wanting a lot of numbers from you, and I would agree that that's probably the number most people will want or will. I like all the numbers that you presented, and those are all valuable, but I can't see a number that would be any more valuable than we had Tommy and Susie in our programs, and they didn't get in trouble again for the next 3 years. That's I agree that there's hurdles in accomplishing that, but I think that's an important number.
Yeah, I get the pull for the recidivism number. I get that. Takes a lot of work.
Right now, we have our community corrections intern who's working on our recidivism for just our program, which is a little bit easier to get than everyone for the entire criminal justice system. And I think that when you're talking about measuring the effectiveness of different programs or pieces of the justice system, I think that that probably is a more valuable information or number to have whenever you're comparing across programs. I know that Dana recently received some data capabilities for Jail Tracker, and so she's still been playing around with some of those reports and trying to figure out. But the recidivism report on Jail Tracker we're finding does not actually necessarily measure recidivism. So it's just been a little bit, it's been a learning process too on what we're able to pull and what's going to take a month's worth of time to find.
Yeah, because if I could click a button, I'd get you a number tomorrow, but I want to make sure it's something that we can have faith in, that is exactly what we're wanting to look at.
Anything else on performance metrics? Okay, then we can move on to our quarterly report. And I know what I sent you was, several pages. So from the advisory board, I would just be interested in if there was anything in the report maybe that stood out to you, that you questioned, things that were good, things that you feel like need improvement or maybe further information. Because at the end of this meeting, I would like to ask for a motion to approve the annual report so that we can move on to presenting it to our county executive per procedural bulletins from the DOC.
I would make the motion to approve the report.
Oh, we got a motion. Is there a second?
I will.
All right. Thank you, Annie. All right. So there's a motion and a second to approve the report, the annual report. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, Megan, your annual report will be approved.
So on the agenda, I put on there that, sorry, I'm getting some feedback, so I'm going to mute some of you. I put on there that we will be speaking at the council meeting on January 25th at 5:00 p.m. And I'm going to be presenting the annual report. And then at the commissioner meeting on February 1st at 8:30 a.m. I don't think I put a.m. on the agenda, so I apologize for that. We'll be presenting the annual report there as well. But also during those meetings, I'll be covering a couple of other items, including the justice system received a COVID relief grant recently. And so the justice partners have been working on just different ways to implement technology and other resources to help deal with COVID-19, particularly with participants from our agency, at least, participants having to Zoom for a lot of their meetings, and case managers at times having to work from home. None of our computers have webcams, so some of them are using their own personal laptops. We've tried everything that we can to try and accommodate from a technology standpoint. It also in that grant includes updating our Wi-Fi. So as you can see, I'm here in the third floor courtroom stealing internet from the courthouse. And so that is something that we're really excited about. So the COVID-19 relief grant, and then involved in that also is probation, the prosecutor's office, and then the courts as well, for different technology pieces. So MiFis, laptops, recording equipment so that the courts can more efficiently stream their proceedings and record their proceedings for people so that the public can attend hearings without having to actually physically be in the courtroom. And the Sheriff's Department is involved in this grant as well. One of the things that we got for that was, or that we're going to propose getting, is an infrared like sanitizer. And we proposed getting one of those for community corrections as well. But I'll be requesting approval to appropriate that at the council meeting. And then also because some of these proposals require purchase of equipment and some things going on in the buildings as far as technology, it also requires commissioner approval. So we'll be going to both of those meetings to request those approvals. And then the last piece that we'll be talking about in both the council meeting and the commissioner meeting is the Lilly grant for appropriation of those funds. And so right now, you know, we've had the Community Foundation come and talk to us about some of the partnerships happening there surrounding the Lilly grant. And there's going to be resources in this community unlike what we have ever seen before. So Dubois County is going to be getting a residential treatment facility for men, a residential treatment facility for women, sober living house for men that's going to be operated through Next Steps, which is a nonprofit locally, and then a sober living house for women. So 4 total safe, sober residential placements in our community. And those are all going to be, not the other 3 are going to be through LifeSpring. And then there's also partnership with Memorial Hospital and their counseling center, and then Dubois County Cares, and that's some youth prevention work. And then of course, Community Corrections is a partner. And so one of the things that we have proposed in the Lilly grant is funding to replace the treatment program facilitator and the case manager that we lost whenever we lost the TANF grant. And that was what Dana was talking about earlier. Whenever we lost the TANF grant, we did not fill our treatment program facilitator, our second treatment program facilitator position, and our case manager position. So those are the 2 pieces that are proposed in the Lilly grant at this time. I think one of the main things that as we move through how this is going to be sustained long term, one of the things that we need to think about as an advisory board is, of course, how are we going to maintain these positions after the Lilly grant runs out? And so what I have as a proposed budget is that the Lilly grant actually funds the full salary, benefits, and insurance for the first year, the full first year. And then as it steps down through the course of 5 years, that we work with the county council in trying to discuss how the corrections and rehabilitative tax could be used to help support these operational expenses. The corrections and rehabilitative tax was put in place last year to build the funds to be able to expand on the jail and to expand on the community corrections building as well. And in some of their meetings, they have discussed putting some money aside for operational expenses. And so this is one of the areas that I would like to prioritize for community corrections, at least, whenever we start talking about how the CNR tax could be utilized to help support our operational expenses. In the second year of the Lilly gift grant, I propose, you know, just kind of like a step down, staggering approach to the county beginning to fund those 2 positions, as the Lilly gift starts out fully funding in the first year until it tapers off in year 6 completely. And the Lilly grant also supports funding for cognitive behavioral workbooks, contracted treatment program providers, and then training for our staff as well. So I did want to gauge you guys' feedback prior to going into the county council and county commissioners meetings on what your thoughts were um, in moving forward with this.
Sounds like you have a plan. I mean, a plan that would work. I guess. I mean, it'd be nice if the Willie grant went longer than the first year. Can't look a gift horse in the mouth. It's a nice grant.
Yeah, that grant, it is over the course of 5 years, and the community foundation has indicated that they do want a sustainability plan in place moving forward.
So I think it's a great idea. I'll go ahead and speak up again. I know, like in olden days, there was this agreement that community corrections would be self-sustainable, and they've sustained for a long time and have ran that facility on their own money. They saved this county a whole lot of money by the individuals that are on work release and house arrest and even doing community service aren't housed at our jail, which would cost the county more money in the long run. So I would love to see the county council at some point chip in and at least fund some of the positions to help keep this facility operational and making great strides. That's just my 2 cents.
If you want people to talk, you're gonna have to call them out individually, I'm afraid.
I'm not afraid of silence, so I can sit here and just make it awkward for everybody. No, I mean, I would appreciate discussion, whether you're in favor of it, whether you have concerns, what are some things that I need to think about.
I'll tell you, I'll give you my 2 cents. I was going to save it for when you come and present, but just my 2 cents is I think this is a great idea that we, if we're going to start having the county give a chip in a little more than we've been doing already, I think this is a fine way to get started with that. I think from my meetings with the county council and with the commissioners that I'm in, I think that there's going to be some support for something like this. My only negative on it, or I guess my question, not necessarily negative, is when you go to get these grants, the various grants that you've applied for over time, is it not a good selling point for you to be able to say our county doesn't support us at all, and is that a helpful way to do it? And the reason I say that is there some way we can fund you in a way that still looks like you're 100% self-supporting? I hope you see where I'm going with that, or maybe I'm completely wrong on that's not a selling point when you're going for grants. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I definitely understand where you're coming from, and I hadn't actually thought of it from that perspective before. And I don't know whether or not it's a selling point to be able to say that or not. I think from my perspective, having the financial support and being able to say, yeah, like it's 30% project income, 30% DOC, and 30% county funding. Whenever I hear a director say that in our directors meetings, I think, dang, they've got some buy-in in that community. You know, they're investing in a program that works. And maybe it's not working. I don't know. I don't see what they're doing, but I know that they have county buy-in, and to me that says a lot. And so whenever I think about where I would want to invest, I think I want to invest in a place where other people are investing a lot of times. So I think that it shows belief and buy-in. And I mean, it's a smart investment, I think, because you are going to see a return on your investment, and we'll be able to show that return on investment. It's not just throwing away dollars. Thanks for adding to the discussion, Chad.
Well, I'll ask Councilwoman Beckman. Do you believe that it seemed like when I've been at some of our council meetings, whenever I've been presenting, it feels like the vibe from the county council is that how are we going to support rehabilitation and treatment in our facilities? And do you agree that it seems like that's been the general consensus of the council? It seems like it has been for the commissioners.
I think we're getting there, Chad. Like today, I think Mike Kleesner and I are on this call, and I believe Alex is. There's always 3 people or so who don't know much about this. We can talk about this every meeting, and I can keep talking rehabilitative services, and it costs money every meeting. But I don't know what it's going to take to get them to get it. You know what I mean? I know we still have people that just believe that you just quit drinking or quit drugs with no idea about what all's involved. So it's a real learning process, I think, for them. Megan, to your point, when we find out what the bids are for construction and remodeling with the CNR tax money, and actually see where they come in and what kind of money we're looking at that's possible then to put towards rehabilitative. For the longest time, I kept thinking the CNR was construction and remodeling. No, correction and rehabilitation. That's as important as any of the construction is to me. We can build brand new buildings, but if nothing's going on in them, we don't have the money to support them. That's all a waste of money to me. So I'm with you, kiddo, and I'm with this whole council, because to me, this is what's important. Brand new buildings are great, got to house them. But the services, the stuff you're talking about today, I'm just so proud of you, and just really appreciate all the work you're doing. So, Chad, I am blowing the horn wherever I can, but we have to get people to understand that we're not 25 years ago anymore. This is what's happening. And so just keep educating.
Yeah, and I would also like to add that we do have Charmaine and Craig also on this call too. Charmaine, Craig, Alex, and then Mike, I believe. I'm sorry if I've missed anybody, but yes, they are also listening in. So thank you guys for making it.
And I want to say, because I think all of us have taken apart some different parts of everything that's going on. So we've got everything covered. So I appreciate they're on this call.
And I think
this is Charmaine. Yeah, this is Charmaine. I went and hid so that there's not so much background noise. Dittos to everything that Becky said about what you all are doing. Things have changed a lot in 25 years. You know, in the past, I think it was just an extra housing facility for people that we didn't want to necessarily put in jail. And now we have bigger goals for what we're doing with those participants, trying to help them make better choices and have a better life. Whereas in the past, that maybe necessarily was not part of the goals. I just want to be cautious. You know, I just always keep in the back of my mind about the CNR tax that will sunset at some time. So just, making sure that we're realistic about the commitments we're making. And, this is mostly for the council. part, but, do we, put some of that money just into a fund that we can use for a while, but, just being really diligent about making sure that we don't overextend ourselves because that money will be gone at some point. So just thinking about that in the future, which I support the fact that we need to come alongside. I'm not saying that we shouldn't. It's just to be mindful that it's just a longer term solution, but not totally long term with the CNR money.
Right.
Hey, Megan, this is Craig. Hey, is it still the goal to continue to get and receive or apply for grants? Is that still the end goal? Or do we see that grants will at some point not be readily available to us? And I guess that'll slim down.
That's a good question, Greg. And I appreciate it because I think grants and applying for grants is a main component of my job. So this year, I didn't just apply for the Lilly grant through the partnership of the foundation, but also worked on a COSAP grant and then a mental health and justice a grant as well. And so there were 2 other grants that we worked on that did not get funded. But that work will never go away, no matter whether the county provides funding or not. Mostly because, and I don't want to say mostly because this is the kind of person that I am, but because that should be a primary function of the director, whether I'm here or anybody's here. But I see big things in our future, and it's going to take funding, particularly for providing even more treatment and rehabilitative programming and making sure that our facility is not just a work release facility. And so being able to provide quality programs and quality treatment does take money. And so that part of my job will never go away.
Megan, I just want to say something. I would imagine the competition is pretty stiff for any grant that you submit. Going back to what Chad had said, I think that's why it's important for the county to have the buy-in instead of saying you're on your own, they're not supporting me. Anybody looking at funding a grant anymore wants to see that their county's behind them, that they've bought into it.
Yeah, and I would agree. I would agree with that. I mean, like I said, there were two grants that got denied this year, and I know that I was denied 2 grants last year, and that was even with the help from Community Solutions this year with a couple of those grants. So it is very, very competitive, and there's just a lot of need, not just statewide. Some of those are federal grants as well. So
Sure.
Yeah, there's definitely need.
And I agree with that too. Part of the state grant for funding through the Department of Corrections is that collaboration plan. And they're looking at us to see, are we truly working together? Do we have the buy-in of the criminal justice stakeholders? Do we have the entities that need to be involved? Are they all working together? And are they giving community corrections what they need, the assistance and the help, whether that comes in the form of monetary or support or advice or even just being part of this advisory board? So I believe that is a big part of the grants, seeing that collaboration. And we're very lucky, our county is very lucky that we have the collaboration we do compared to a lot of the other counties that we see that go for these grants. And I think that's why Megan's been so successful in getting her grant from the Department of Corrections. And I know we have an individual from the state on with us, and I don't know if he could talk to that anymore, but Dubois County is successful in their grant for community corrections.
Yes, I would just reiterate what you just said, that one of the big parts of our grant is submitting that collaboration plan, seeing that the other community stakeholders, or that the various community stakeholders, I guess I should say, are all in support of the program that's applying, or the programs or entities that are applying, and not duplicating that. We don't have counties overworking, funding programs that are doing the same work, but all the programs and entities are instead working together in order not to duplicate, and in focus, and have a overall goal that everyone is working towards. And as I've been sitting on the call, it's been great to hear that a lot of folks are offering that support to Megan, to community corrections, and that congratulations on the good work that they're doing, and sound like they want to continue to do. And so it's really thrilling for me to hear that, because as you said, some places struggle to get that support within their county. And so it's nice to hear that that's not happening here.
Mike, it looked like you had started talking whenever you were on mute. Did you?
Yeah, I
have
just
something you wanted to add?
I just want to weigh in here. Again, like a couple of them said, the CNR tax is finite. We got we're going to sunset. I was just wondering, and that Craig had the same question I was going to ask. Is grants, that we would continue with that. The thought I had here was, I think last year or this year we're funding the utilities, or of the facility, which I believe is the first time. So, with the new construction, that will go up. It's going to increase in cost because got a bigger facility there. So, as a county, as the county, we're going to, or the council's concerned, we have to take that in position, in the, and then the last thing I thought, is there any way, you had mentioned a few positions. Is there any way you could project cost wise what you see, when you say positions, that's fine, but, I like put it in dollars, since that's what we're going to be talking in, how much, we know what the CR tax approximately is going to bring in. So if you could consider that, putting some kind of a number possibly to it and project it out. Because I agree with that. If Lily's going to pick up the first year, maybe we could set this back. I don't know how that exactly would work, but if we could set that money back, that we would, could be, naturally it's going to be cost us more each year for 5 years, and then I'm going to take it over. So that's all I would ask.
Definitely. And the way that I figure it, between the two positions, the contracted services, and then some like program supplies, I have figured about $155,000 for all of that. And I do have a spreadsheet that I'll provide the council whenever we come to you guys to discuss further. But in the second year, I think I only have the county paying for, like in my taper down approach, the county supporting the insurance, and then in the second year, I kind of taper up on the contracted services that the county helps to provide. And it kind of incrementally goes up into year 6, like I said, where it would be about $155,000. And that did account for about a 2% increase in pay annually. I know sometimes we see a little bit more, sometimes we see a little bit less, but I did want to account for that piece as well. And then in reference to the thing that you brought up about the utilities, I again appreciate you guys' support in funding the utilities this year. I thought that was, I mean, I even put it in my annual report because I thought it was such a big deal. But and I could be totally wrong on this, but I remember our QAW saying that we would be sharing utilities with the jail, I believe. And so consolidating the systems might help a little bit with efficiency for our utilities. Does that ring a bell for
Yeah,
anybody?
that probably makes sense. It does. But, you are adding quite a bit of square footage to it.
Yeah.
So, and utilities are going to be, and maybe some of this can all be paid out of the CR tax, but, during construction, naturally, utility bills are going to go up. You're opening walls up and, that kind of thing. So, that's during construction, but makes sense. Appreciate you. I think it brings it in a little bit more, if we're talking 155,000, it makes more sense, than having these positions out there that we don't know what they cost.
I'm the same way. I have it broken down in a very detailed spreadsheet.
Okay, well, thank you.
That was really good feedback and discussion. Did anybody else have anything that they'd like to add?
Megan, can I add one thing? How many people, once you have a new remodeled building, how many people then will you be housing? And then how many more staff members are you going to need to, do you have all that figured out?
Yes. So
Okay.
our new building would have 170 beds. So we'd be going from 102 to 170, with about 50 of those beds being for females. And then the remaining 120 would be for males.
Okay.
I actually just recently sent a question to our residential advisory committee regarding staff analysis. I think we do really good in the ratio of case managers to participants right now. I mean, I think we're solid there. And being able to have caseloads that are manageable to be able to provide high quality services. Where I think that we struggle though is in our officer to participant ratio. Our night shift only has 2 corrections officers on, and our day shift has 2. So it's like 6A to 6P, and then 6P to 6A. And then we kind of have a floater right in the middle who's there from about 9 to 9. And so I feel like that is bare bones staffing for a facility of our size. And so, as I mentioned, I did send out an email to our residential advisory committee asking for if there were any American Correctional Association guidelines or recommendations for staffing. And I hope to be hearing back soon.
Okay. Thank you.
So I just invite any of you, if you are interested in attending the county council meeting or the commissioner meeting. Again, the council meeting is January 25th at 5 p.m. And then the commissioner meeting is February 1st at 8:30 a.m. And that is all I have on our agenda.
Thank you, Megan. Much appreciated. So I guess with that comes to the end of the community corrections meeting. If we have a motion.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn, second.
I will second that. But I want to thank you, Nathan, for your work as president. Done an awesome job over the last 5 years. So appreciate it.
Thank you, appreciate it. All right. that will conclude the meeting then. Thank you. We stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Bye.